Okay, we're continuing with our subject, the anatomy of spiritual healing. This is part 5 of a continuation on this subject, anatomy of spiritual healing, using as a parable the short story of the helicopter and 2 boats. And tonight we're dealing with another one of the key words, which is one of the several terms, working terms as metaphors that we are interpreting spiritually as we unlock the healing power of this parable, or of a parable, particularly this parable, the story of the helicopter and 2 boats. I have an outline that I'm going to speak from and through, and I'll share it with you. And here it is. If you're listening by audio and you cannot see the posted outline, it's not necessary that you have it, because I am going to read it thoroughly. And the topic is Anatomy of Spiritual Healing, Part 5. The working topic under this subject is the floodwater. Sub to that is that this is a forensic analysis. A forensic analysis is a methodical and thorough investigation of information after an incident has occurred. And so what we're doing here, after I read the short story again, it's only a couple short paragraphs, few short paragraphs. We're talking about the incident of a drowning man. So that says that this isn't a situation that is past, that has already happened. The man has drowned. And so we're doing a methodical and thorough investigation of the information surrounding it. What happened? What happened? What happened and why? What happened and why? And what can we learn from it? A forensic analysis. As we do so, we have to be reminded that this is not an entertainment. This is not a show. This is not a traditional or contemporary, meeting here. This is healing school. Healing school. This is a spiritual experience. As such, this story is about you. It's about me. It's your story and it's my story. By extension, what the goal and aim here is to teach me, for us to learn how to do a quick, automatic forensic analysis in our own lives when we have come through an incident, when we are experiencing a stressful situation, a disturbance in our lives, a crisis, but especially a situation dealing with unanswered prayer. We are learning how to have our minds so trained that we automatically allow the mind to do its own forensic analysis. I didn't even know I was going to say that, but that's what I had to halt, and it just came through. That's our goal here. How to let the mind do automatically its own forensic analysis, which is a methodical and thorough investigation of all of the information around this sickness, this disease, this impasse, this disturbance, this distressful situation. And it does it in such a way that it reveals to you the cause, the true cause behind it, having you to understand that whatever you presently think is or was the cause is never the case. So the goal is to analyze all the data from the scene to understand that what happened. The goal is to analyze all the data from the scene to understand what happened and deduce the appropriate answers or solutions to counter the effects. That's what forensic analysis is. To make it clear, I want to read that again. What forensic analysis is: it's a methodical and thorough investigation of information after an incident. The goal is to analyze all the data from the scene, from around the situation, to understand what happened, and then deduce the appropriate answers or solutions to counter the effects. So in this case of the parable of the helicopter and two boats, we will conduct a spiritual forensic analysis of the incident of the drowning man, or the drowned man in the floodwater. Excuse me. After he refused the help from the helicopter and the two boats that were sent to him. Who is the drowning man? Metaphorically speaking, the drowning man is me. The drowning man is you. The drowning man is you at certain times in your life. The spiritual essence and healing dynamic of a parable is derived by comparing two stories side by side. That's why it's called parable, parallel, parable, two, parable. By comparing two stories side by side, and then this is what makes it a parable. This is what spiritualizes the story, because there's the and then that happens. There's a third essence that is deduced or inspired, or that is given. And then a third message, lesson, or meaning, or the solution is induced. In our case of these spiritual lessons, how is it induced? It is induced through intuition. How so? By the therapist in my mind. Who is the therapist? Who is the Holy Spirit. You see, Jesus was so connected in God. He transcended with God. You know, we're not, we see ourselves with God. Jesus so transcended a consciousness of being one with God. Oh, he crossed that line until he saw himself as being in God as God, or God as him, not as him as God, but God as who he was and what he was. And he realized that the voice of God was not outside of him, but inside his mind. And he had a relationship with it. And that's the goal of these lessons, is to increase that knowledge and that awareness more and more and more. The first story, I said two stories, right? The first story of the drowning man is anyone who is experiencing an unhealed condition, situation, or circumstance, a sickness, a disease, or any other problem, and nothing has healed their issue yet. That's the story of the helicopter and two boats. This man, that's his story. That's the first story. The man was drowning. The man was drowning. The story doesn't tell you what his issue was. And the reason for it is that you can presume or assume and work with anything that you want to put in there. It doesn't matter. The fact is that he was drowning. And we can say that he was drowning of experiencing some chronic, long-standing issue in his life. It could have been some acute issue, something that happened suddenly. It doesn't matter. He was drowning. And eventually he died. That's the story here. That's the first story. The second story is the parallel story. It's a parable. The parable is two stories told side by side. And so you are given an opportunity through spiritual healing process is to share your story, is to speak forth your story, is to deal with your story. What is your story? Your story is about your chronic situation, your long-standing situation, your something that you've been praying for and about that is unresolved, unhealed. Medicine doesn't heal it. You've learned to manage it and control it, live with it, tolerate it, till death do us part, so to speak. Do the best you can. Make the best of it. That's your story. This is the idea of this parable. The man had dealt with this so long, and he was drowning. He was the Bible character, the man lying by the pool for 38 years. See, that's the same, the man lying by the pool for 38 years. Then the helicopter came to him. Jesus came along, that's the helicopter, and said, do you want to be healed? The man didn't accept Jesus' offer immediately. The man immediately began to give Jesus all the meanings and all the reasons he had not gotten into the water, giving him excuses and reasons. Same thing happening here in the story of the helicopter and the two boats. The man refused the help. What's the purpose of listening to this if you're not applying it to yourself and recognizing that I too am that man who's drowning? I too is that man by the pool for 38 years. How long have you been dealing with this situation? That's unhealed, unresolved. You haven't made a breakthrough. These are the issues that we're talking about. The second story is a story about your incident or whatever you're praying to heal or demonstrate in your life, and nothing has broken through yet. And so the therapist, as the helicopter or the Holy Spirit in your mind, who is the healer, will induce through intuition. Intuition is the helicopter in your mind, a message, a lesson, or an answer, a solution, which is the spiritual medicine that will heal your mind. The spiritual medicine is the truth behind the cause of the incident, the situation, the disease. And this is helping you to be not accountable, because accountable insinuates blame to me, but to be responsible, and that's a more, light word, responsible for your role in its making or manifestation or expression of it. There's some connectivity there. And in that, you're not blaming yourself, but it's your aha moment, because in that acceptance, out of it is induced a lesson or a message to where you get what it came to bring you. And then that is your thanksgiving. And you praise it and you give thanks for it because you don't see it as something bad coming out of evil or negative, because there is no negative or evil or bad in God. What I am saying is not easy to understand and not always a pill easy to swallow. But when the doctor gives you the medicine, it says, the direction says, take it. Not, doesn't matter whether it's good or bad, take it. Because if you don't take it, it doesn't work. So these lessons are designed to help you take it. You've heard the saying, you can't handle the truth. These lessons are designed to help you receive the truth. So, analyzing through interpreting the symbolism behind the metaphorical keys in this parable tills the soil. You see, he banished Adam and Eve from the garden to till the soil. And so that's what we're doing now. We have to till the soil. Analyze, that's what we're doing through these lessons. We're tilling the soil. Analyzing through interpreting the symbolism behind the metaphorical keys in this parable tills the soil of your mind, allowing the light of truth to break forth into your consciousness as the solution, as the answer, or as the true cause of anything that you're experiencing in your life as a problem, which is never what you think it is. To do that, we shall again read the transcript of the forensic analysis, the transcript of the incident of the drowning man as it was told. And this is how it was told. The helicopter and two boats. The story is a parable about a devout individual who is drowning in flood water. This means that you, an individual who already know how to pray, you already believe in God, you already have faith in God to heal, faith in God to remove the situation, faith in God to reverse the situation, faith in God to heal this broken relationship, faith in God to help you to resolve this living situation, this home situation, this transportation situation, this career situation, this job situation, this finance situation. Oh yeah, you have faith. You know God can. You know God can. You know God can. The devout individual thinks no one knows about his peril, but he believes that God will save him. How? By a miracle. And so a boat passes by and someone reaches a hand to help him, but the man refuses help, saying that God will send a miracle. You see, this here is signifying here that the help always comes. The answer is out. There's no such thing as unanswered prayer. But there can be unrealized prayer. God always answers. God always sends the answer. The answer is the moment that you ask. Whatsoever things that you pray for, believe that you receive them and you shall. God has already answered before you even ask. A boat passes by and someone reaches a hand, but the man refuses the help in the form in which it is coming. He's looking for God to answer this prayer. He's looking for a miracle to show up in some spooky way. But this lesson teaches us is that God deals in very simplified and practical ways right in front of you. The answer is. A second boat passes. And so you will see here is that God comes through the incident. God comes through the problem. God comes through the sickness. God comes through the disease. God comes through the argument, the blow up in the relationship. God comes through the loss of the career, some loss in finances, some whatever it is. That's God working perfectly. But you have to believe that God is always working perfectly in time and on time, or not. You can't be selective about this thing. It is or it's not. It's black or white. Is God working perfectly in all things in your life? Yeah, you can say that, but soon as something happens, you separate that from the all things. No, God can't be in that. Oh, yeah, it is or it's not. That's a different boat. Boats are plural. Different incidents, different situations, one incident after the other until you learn. A second boat passes. Again, the drowning individual refuses help because he's still waiting for God to heal this in the way that he wants God to heal it. Lastly, a helicopter passes over and a hand reaches down to rescue him, and he refuses that help, waiting for a miracle. After turning down the last help, he drowns in the flood. After his death, the individual wakes up and meets God and asks, Lord, I was faithful and I believe, so why didn't you save me? And God responds, I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter, and you refused help. I sent you answers. I was there, but you didn't recognize me. You didn't recognize the answer. You didn't want to receive the answer in the form in which it was given. Well, Ecclesiastes 1:9-10 says this: what has been will be again, and what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one can say, look, this is something new? It was here already long ago. It was here before our time. That says to me that it is, for, let's say that understanding what a psychic is or what a psychic does, one who can see into the other realm in such a way that they can read the Akashic record or the life plan or whatever and see things to come. If the man had been in such a situation that where someone could have read his record, they could have told him what would likely or what was going to happen, and they have foreseen this incident at a time where he would be drowning as a result of whatever that's what a psychic does. And how is it that this psychic could have done that? By reading his present mental equivalent, his present Akashic record, his present state of consciousness. In other words, you can do this in your own life. That's what this is saying. This is, let me reread this. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. This that happened to this man had happened long ago. Long ago is not the past. Long ago is in his future. And What we believe and teach is that that long ago can be changed before it comes to pass. If you are so spiritually enlightened, you can change what has a tendency, a trajectory to come to pass in the future. You can change it now. And that's the purpose of these lessons here, is that we are learning how to go ahead and rearrange and change things that has a tendency, that has a trajectory to come out in a certain way. You can change it now through understanding what we are talking about here now. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one can say, look, this is something new? It was here already long ago. It was here before our time. What are we doing? We're learning to take control of conditions in our life, control of tomorrow's experience. That has already happened. You can change it before it materializes, manifests, or expresses on the outer. The parable, as we go forward, contains keys to unlocking its inner meaning or the truth. These keys are metaphors to be applied to your own experience so that you may be able to personalize the meaning, solution, or answer for your specific need. In other words, you move into the Oprah Winfrey experience where you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, meaning that each one will receive his or her own personalized truth. Everybody hears something different as it applies to your need. So the significant metaphors in this parable are these: the drowning man, the helicopter, the two boats, and the flood water, each representing, symbolizing different aspects of your own story. Theoretically, water is a symbol of life and renewal. So we're in this lesson interpreting the metaphor of the flood water. We've already spent time on the helicopter and the two boats now, and the drowning man. But now, what does the flood water mean? Let's put this all together. Theoretically, water is a symbol of life and renewal. However, the flood water in this parable represents water in a distressful or disturbing way. The flood water in this parable represents a disturbed and distressed state of mind that is in panic in the midst of peril in this water. This is the idea here. It's a concept here that we're working with, the idea of when you're experiencing, your head is bobbing up and down and you're trying to catch your breath and you feel hopeless and you feel impending death. You don't see your way out and there is no help. You see, that's the idea here is you're in the flood water. And the spiritual forensic analysis of the flood water reveals that the components of the water at this time are race suggestion, the Akashic records, and his mental equivalent at the time of his drowning. That's what the report shows. That was the components of the water that makes it the flood water. And we're going to break down these aspects, the race suggestion, the Akashic record, and the mental equivalent. All of this working at the same time in his consciousness. Ernest Holmes on page 177 of the textbook says this about race suggestion. We're going to look at race suggestion, the Akashic record, and mental equivalent in understanding the dynamics of the floodwater. Race suggestion, the possibility of spiritual mind healing, which is changing environment or controlling conditions in your life through the power of right thinking, rest. Rest entirely upon the theory that we are surrounded by a universal mind. And that's where the man was, in the water, universal mind, which reacts to our thought and always according to law. You see, there are laws of nature, laws of climate, laws of the water, which is the law of buoyancy, the laws of light, the laws of electricity. There are all kinds of laws, you see. And the man was subject to these laws. The law of buoyancy, he was drowning. The law of mind action, the law of karma, all of these laws. That's what race consciousness is, race suggestion, the possibility of spiritual mind healing, which is changing environment or controlling conditions, etc., through the power of right thinking, rests entirely upon the theory that we are surrounded by a universal mind, that's water, which reacts to our thought. It can be changed into floodwater and always according to law. Sickness, for example, is not a spiritual reality. It is an experience, an effect, and not a cause. You see, think about it. We think that we are experiencing pain, hurt, and all of the symptoms in our body because of caused by sickness. Sickness cannot cause that. Sickness is not a spiritual reality, it's an experience, an effect, and not a cause. What is that saying? The body devoid of mentality could neither know nor experience sensation. It is entirely an effect, the body is. It is entirely an effect. Man comes into objectivity with the tendency of the race already subjectified within him through race suggestion. In that theory, we have the idea or belief of inheriting disease, inheriting sickness. We were raised and we saw people catching this and experiencing this and that, and we associate it with laws of inheritance and laws of this and laws of that and laws of medicine. This is race suggestion, thoughts of the ages. I just got my COVID booster the other day. That's because I have the fear that if I don't, I'm subject to race suggestion that when it goes around, I'll catch it. That's race suggestion. You know, man comes into objectivity with the tendency, man comes into objectivity with the tendency of the race already subjectified within him through race suggestion. See, I'm talking about the components of the floodwater, and this you have to see was the man's condition. All of this was working in his mind. All of this was working in his belief, and he was drowning in it to the point he died. The race experiences sickness and limitation, and this suggestion is more or less operative through all people. Doesn't matter whether you're black or white, or whether you're Catholic or Methodist, or whether you're this or that. No, all people, no matter how spiritual you are, you're the Pope. Look at the Pope right now, what he's going through. All people. The race experiences sickness and limitation. And this suggestion is more or less operative through all people. It works through the subjective race thought and operates through the individual. That which we call our subjective mind, is in reality our identity in infinite mind. It is the result of our mental attitudes. We see then that subjective mind, this is Ernest Holmes talking, is the medium through which experiences come to us. We see then that the subjective mind is the medium through which experiences come to us. All right. Now that's race suggestion. I said that the floodwaters, the composition of it is race suggestion, mental equivalent, and your Akashic record. All of this is operating in this man's mind simultaneously at the same time. And this is the consistency of floodwater. Mental equivalent. What is that? As we look about the world, we see that all outer conditions, circumstances, situations, problems, sickness, disease, misery, or misfortune of any kind are but reflections or outpicturings of my inner consciousness. That's my mental equivalent, my mental attitude, my state of mind, my belief system, my knowing is showing. My inner consciousness is my mental equivalent that is governed by my present mental atmosphere, my present aura, which is to say, my present beliefs, feelings, attitude. So whatever enters your life has to be the material reflection, projection of your inner beliefs, the drowning man. Therefore, because my life is God's life. Now, this we're going to have to hang out on right here, because this ties into the close of last week's session that was not recorded during the sharing time. During the sharing time, it was asked, I'm a little confused here about, you said that God sent the boats, and I was okay with that, and I was following that, but then you also said that he sent the solution. But you're saying that the solution is in the boat, and I'm not seeing them as being the same. How can that be one and the same? Listen to the clarification of that through this lesson. Because if you look at the topic for tonight, it says the spiritual anatomy, the anatomy of spiritual healing, the helicopter and two boats, part 5. Part 5 is what? Forensic analysis of spiritual healing. And under that, it said, the healing is in the boat. The solution or the answer is in the boat. The incident and the solution are one and the same. That's what I want you to put a pin in. And we're healing the idea of separation. Every now and then we go back to that principle, healing the idea of separation, seeing oneness, and seeing God in all things, learning how to see that in the problem is God working and showing up perfectly. And that idea removes the idea of evil or bad or overcoming some opposition to God or some other power. Let's go back to it. That's what I want you to listen for. The answer to the problem is in the problem. The solution and the problem are one and the same. Your beliefs are seeds that encapsulate your words, ideas, thoughts, feelings, attitudes, visions, dreams, desires, hopes, aspirations. I had a doctor's appointment today, and I had been running from the appointment because that's how I do. That's what I do. I don't go until I'm ready to go. So they're called, you miss your appointment. I say, well, let's reschedule. You see, because I don't go until I've been there already. I teach, go there before you get there. And hear the doctor saying the truth and what you want to hear. Not go there always and continue to confirm what you've been going for all the time. To see your improvement and to see your, that's all right, but that's not what I'm talking about. You want to hear the good news. And so if you hear it before you get there, then when you get there, you will hear it. And so there are a couple of people who are listening tonight know what I'm talking about in my personal situation. Because I shared with them for the purpose of watch this, watch this, watch how I handle this. And so the last couple of weeks, I was very disturbed about this incident. And then I decided to make an appointment, not to see my regular or primary physician, because in order to make an appointment to see him, I would have to wait another month or two. So they say, well, would you want to see any doctor? I said, yes. And I never do that. But this time I said, yeah, let me go ahead and deal with this thing. It doesn't matter because he's going to say what I want him to say. So, okay, what can I do for you today? I said, oh, well, I'm concerned about I said, well, you know what? That's something you shouldn't worry about. That's normal and that's natural. And I said, okay. But I was under so much stress because of what another doctor had said. Do you hear what I am saying? Your beliefs are seeds that encapsulate your words, ideas, thoughts, feelings, attitudes, visions, dreams, desires, hopes, aspirations. And at the same time, your sin, that's what I'm talking about, your fears, your guilt, your shame, your doubt, your worry, your anxiety, your depression, and every dark emotion. Your beliefs are seeds. So when we see the appearance of sickness, disease, incurables, and conditions, and problems, and harmful incidents, we must learn how to see through them and see the true cause behind them, which is the only cause of everything there is in the universe, and that is God. So I had to have those conversations with myself. This is God. This is God working perfectly in time and on time. The man was drowning in the floodwaters. The floodwater represents man's mental equivalent, which is his what? Unconscious or subjective conscious part of his mind. Your inner consciousness is your mental equivalent that is governed by your present mental atmosphere. The chatter that is going on in your mind, the beliefs, the attitudes, your feeling, which is to say your present beliefs. It is done unto you as you believe. I am a spiritual being. I'm a child of God. I can't be sick. I do not inherit stuff. Your beliefs are seeds that encapsulate your words, your ideas, your thoughts, your feelings, your attitudes, your visions, your dreams, your desires, your hopes, your aspirations. And at the same time, your sins, your fears, your guilt, your anxiety, your depressions, and your dark emotions. All right, so what have we covered? Race suggestion and mental equivalence. I said the floodwater is a composite, and the components of it are race suggestion, mental equivalent, and your Akashic records. And that was drowning the man. The man was drowning in this. This was his weight. And his head was bobbing up and down in the water till they became floodwater. What is the Akashic record? The Akashic records is a collection of all your thoughts, all your feelings, going all the way back to your beginning of life. And perhaps your life before this life. See, you don't know that. You could have come into the world with predispositions to, being sensitive to. I learned this in the 1980s. I was a practitioner, new practitioner. And at that time, we would go to Founders Church once a year. And we had this experience called the Congress, and where delegates from all over the world, and especially all over the country, would convene in this 2,000-seat auditorium of Founders Church. And there is where they would update laws and create, the business of the church, the universal church. And I was a delegate because of my, activity at that time. I had some prominence and represented guidance. And we would go to the floor in order to make motions and vote upon and so forth. And I was very active, very, very, very dynamic. Dr. Bill Hornaday was the active minister of the church at that time. But he had two very prominent assistant ministers there who were on the pulpit every Sunday. One of them was, these people were very, very well known. I just can't recall the man's name who I'm talking about right now. But he noticed me. He didn't know me personally. I didn't know him personally. And he sent word to me that he wanted to meet with me. And I did so. He lived somewhere probably around Echo Park or somewhere in that part of the city, up in the hills. And I went to have tea with him, and we sat and we talked for some time. And when I left, I wondered, what was that all about? Because I didn't know. What was that all about? But it was not until sometime later, now since this was all the way back into the early 80s, I can't tell you how long after that I had this revelation or breakthrough as a result of sitting in this man's presence. You see, he was a practitioner. He was a spiritualist. He was one of those real spiritualists. He was one of those real practitioners. You understand what I mean? He wasn't one who just had the label or the name. He could sense, he could see, he could feel. And what happened is that I realized later that sitting in his presence, there was something transmitted, transfused, infused by my being in his presence, healing consciousness. And the breakthrough came, I don't know if it was a year later, 2 years, or how long later. I can't spend too long to remember that detail. But I had an breathtaking moment when I heard what he was saying to me months or years later. And that was that these were not his words. This is not what he said to me, literally. But figuratively, this is what I realized that he was saying to me, that I came into the world predisposed. Predisposition is called race consciousness through the track of inheritance. An issue of sensitivity. And the way I saw that connection was the way that I was processing and dealing with this debilitating experience that I went through with my job that led me to early retirement, early disability retirement. to the point where the last time I have worked on a job was in 1979. To this day, I've never worked on a job since. But as a result of settling with the Los Angeles County. But the point is that all of that came out of, that's when I saw it, is coming through this experience of what he had said to me. But I didn't hear it at that time, and he didn't say it in those literal terms. But it tilled the soil to where that revelation broke through and I could see it. And that is an answer to the questioner who asked last week, how can you say that he sent the boat and then you say the solution, and the solution is in the problem? How can the two be one? What I am saying is this, that when I accepted what the man had said to me, because I was asking Spirit to reveal to me, then I saw where my own words were the cause of that situation, to where my superior at that time said something to me, to which I internalized as, and I took it personal, and I internalized it as emotional shock to my system that sent me into 3 chronic illnesses that lasted almost 2 years, until this revelation, to where I realized that I set this in motion 10 years ago. And now it was coming to pass. It was then where I saw that my joy was my sorrow. This is the solution in the healing in the problem. The solution in the boat. The two are one. Let's move on. Thank you for the question last week, Daphne. So the Akashic Record. The Akashic Record is a collection of all thoughts, feelings, memories, and events that have ever happened. And these records are stored on the mental plane. As soon as we see this truth and see it spiritually, the appearance changes, because this is a mental world. And as soon as I let my mind take me back down memory lane in my Akashic Record and remember that I had said 10 years earlier, I will only work 10 years and I will not work for somebody else after that. I said that to many people over and over. And in the 9th year, this man said something to me that sent me into emotional shock. And I was angry at him. And I was unforgiving. But when I realized that in my Akashic Record, it was revealed to me, you did this to yourself. And this incident was the boat, was the sickness. And now in that boat is the solution. Hear it. Can you receive the truth? Yes. And then out of that, what did I do? Forgive them, for they know not what they do. And out of that forgiveness, all 3 of these chronic illnesses that medicine did not help me with began to disappear. But there's a long story behind that. So this is easy to read, but it is difficult to understand because of its simplicity. You see, A Course in Miracles says complexity is of the ego. Let's close with the prophet Khalil Gibran, who speaks on joy and sorrow. In other words, the answer is in the problem. The solution is in the problem. The healing is in the problem. And the problem is God working perfectly. That incident with me was God working perfectly in time and on time. No bad, no evil, nothing wrong. It's your blessing showing up in a form that you don't want to accept. Then a woman said, speak to us of joy and sorrow. And he answered, your joy is your sorrow unmasked. The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. When you are joyous, look deep into your heart and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Some of you say, joy is greater than sorrow. And others say, nay, sorrow is the greater. But I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come. The solution and the incident, the solution and the problem, the healing is in the problem. But I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come. And so in our close, things, scripture says, which are seen are not made of things which do appear. The answer and the problem are one. The solution and the problem are one. The answer and solution are in the problem. The answer and solution are in the boat. The answer and solution are in the incident, the condition, the situation, the circumstance, the problem, the disease, the sickness in whatever form, visible or invisible, tangible or intangible, animate or inanimate, good or bad. And so it is.